The fact that Crawford needed the last 2 rounds to win the fight on 2 cards is horrific. 115, 113 was abysmal. What a great week in Vegas, first of all. Let me just say that. That was just fantastic. Got to see some old friends, and it was just a pleasure being there. It was like a giant meet and greet. Did the fight go as I expected? Actually, it's been a long time since I made a prediction that accurate, not just in the winner, but in how the fight would go. So, yes, it went exactly as I expected, much to my surprise, because even when I predicted it, I wasn't sure. I certainly wouldn't have bet the house on it. I wouldn't have even bet dinner on it. But it ended up going exactly as I predicted. Everything from what Crawford did to what Canelo did to the size difference, everything went exactly as I predicted it. So I was quite proud of myself. Thank you.
There were rounds where Crawford kind of traded with Canelo, but there were quite a few rounds where he kind of used his footwork to remove himself from Canelo's range. You could argue that in those rounds, Canelo coming forward and applying pressure may just have nicked him the rounds. Do you agree?
No, I would not agree. And this is something that, people, he's coming forward. Coming forward doesn't mean anything other than coming forward. Let's make that clear. That's not automatic points because you're walking forward. The key when we talk about aggression in boxing, and this is very important, it has to be effective aggression. Now, in a case where you have 2 guys, one is running doing nothing and the other one's coming forward doing nothing, the guy coming forward doing nothing has the advantage. Great, but that's not the case here. You have a guy coming forward doesn't mean he's automatically winning the round. And Crawford doesn't have to trade to have him win the round. He can backpedal. Muhammad Ali backpedaled his entire career, especially in his prime, and won rounds big and destroyed guys. You don't have to only be going forward. That's not a determining factor in the scoring of a fight. You have to be aggressive. You have to be effective in your aggression. So, no, I definitely do not agree with that. And I thought that Crawford almost had this guy on the end of his hook and was just reeling him around wherever he wanted to. And that's why I say my prediction was so accurate, because Canelo did exactly what he's been doing for the last 5 years, is just maybe even longer, just walking after guys, waiting to load up, getting them in there in his sight, loading up with hard shots and hurting them. And he wasn't going to be able to do this with Crawford, and he didn't. And he was missing by a wide margin, and he almost looked way slower in there than he did against bigger guys. Crawford made him look much slower. So, no, I don't agree with the coming forward. I wasn't drinking that Kool-Aid at all.
Fair comment, Russ. So tell me, how did you score the fight?
In fairness, watching it and trying to be as objective as possible and really watching it, and this is the advantage I have. I don't only score a fight watching it as a judge, and I don't use them as the barometer to say, well, I was right or I wasn't. I score it as a trainer and as a judge, and I look for what's landing. To me, that's important. Who's landing the shots? Who's controlling the fight? Who's showing the better defense? I gave Canelo 3 rounds. At first, I thought maybe I've done something wrong. How could that be? I only give Canelo 3 rounds. Robert Garcia, Roy Jones, Mark Ramsey, just to name a few, only gave him 3 rounds as well. I just couldn't see the rounds. I wasn't buying into this. And one mistake that judges seem to always make, if fighter A has a dominant round, and this happened in the Usyk-Fury fight, a fighter has a dominant round, the next round he's not as dominant, the judges seem to give the round to the other guy because he wasn't as dominant as he was in the first round. But he never won that round. And that's what I was not going to buy into with Canelo. There were some rounds where Crawford just dominated. There were other rounds that were close, but Canelo didn't win them. Did he do better than in some of the other rounds? Maybe, but Canelo didn't win them. So I wasn't buying into that. And like I said, I gave Canelo 3 rounds. The fight was hard fought. It doesn't mean that because it was 9-3 that it was a walk in the park. They were hard fought, and it was very cerebral contest. I gave Canelo 3 rounds. Sorry.
Okay, so what's your view on the 2 judges that scored it 113 to 115?
Out to lunch. The fact that Crawford needed the last 2 rounds to win the fight on 2 cards is horrific. It's criminal. Like, there was no way that fight was that close. Impossible. I don't care about, some rounds were close. As soon as I hear that some rounds were close, doesn't matter. You can win a round 10-9 and it's still close. Don't say it was close that you can give it the other way. No, you're still robbing the guy of the round, even if it was close. And if there were some in there that were close, then call it even. If you think they could have gone either way, but you can't say just because it's close, it should have gone to the other guy. Not a chance. 115, 113 was abysmal.
Well, you made that pretty clear, mate. So tell me, where do you think this puts Crawford in the current pound-for-pound list? Is he up there with Usyk, or has he exceeded Usyk by becoming sort of undisputed in 3 weight classes compared to Usyk's 2?
He was always up there anyway. So this just made him even greater. He was always up there. So where are you going to move him to? From 2 to 1 or 3 to 2? Or he was up there. So he's one of the best pound for pound fighters in boxing today. I say it's safe to say, any way you want to mix it, he's in the top 3. I personally don't ever consider a heavyweight as a pound for pound great, because the pound for pound thing means that if a smaller guy moved up to the bigger weights, he'd be able to beat everybody up. Well, a heavyweight can already beat everybody up, so it doesn't matter. He shouldn't take part in that. But on a skill set in what he can do in a boxing ring, he's as good as there is in boxing. Personally, I think a guy whose name should be in the pound for pound mix way more is somebody like Shakur Stevenson. Because from a textbook perspective of boxing, stance, balance, position, technique, quality of punches, I'm not sure that there's anybody in the world right now who does it better. Defense, who does it better than Shakur. The only knock you could have on Shakur is he doesn't have that devastating, Inoue type power, but he does everything that any trainer wants to teach a boxer. He does it maybe better than anybody else in the world. So that's how I look at a pound for pound great, and Crawford fills that, checks those boxes as well as does Usyk. So of course Crawford's up there without a doubt. And I'll go one step further. You take Crawford, you take Usyk, you take Inoue, take any one of those 3 guys. You want to say, where are they among the greats of all time? I'll put it to you this way. How about you can put them in any era of boxing in the history of the sport, and they would be competing, they would be champions.
Before we wrap it up, look, it's my humble opinion that Crawford won't step up a further weight division, nor do I think he's going to drop down to 154 or lower. I think that leaves like the 160 division. So, hypothetically, how do you think he might fare in that division with the likes of your friend Janibek?
Listen, I think he's going to fare well. The one advantage he won't have as much as he does at super middleweight is that speed advantage, because the guys at 60 are going to be almost as quick as him, who's a 54. There's not going to be much difference like there was between him and Canelo. That could be a factor. But I think he's got the size. And I think, like Roy Jones and I, when we spoke about this before the fight, size isn't going to be an issue when you're not getting hit, when you're not being bullied around. Size is not going to be an issue. And great fighters in the past have proved that, and Crawford proved it again this past weekend. We always say, oh, this guy's punching power. Punching power doesn't mean anything if you're punching at air. If you're shadow boxing, it doesn't mean anything. So he's got the skill set, regardless of what weight class he's in. He's got the skill set to stay in there with anybody. Even if he moved up to light heavyweight, he has the skill set to stay in there. Wins or not wins is another story. But that's the boxing IQ. That's the science of boxing. That's the purity of the sport, what you saw there. It's been a while since we've seen a fight at such a high level of technique and skill set in a chess match. It's been a while since we've seen one, and I'm glad we saw it, and I think if you go back in history, you look at fights like Leonard against Benitez was the highest level of chess match I've ever seen, I think is fair to say. It wasn't a knockdown, drag him out affair, but what a beautiful contest of boxing and of what the sweet science is.